Okay, thanks for your interest in Pathfinder Link. I'm going to go through the time and materials module and show you exactly what it does and how easy it is to use. So right now you're looking at the time and materials project, and this is the overview screen right here. Essentially what this gives you is everything that's applicable to the project you're working on. Everything over here in this light gray box is everything that is associated with that project as well. So you can click on this and it'll give you kind of a checklist to make sure that your projects are set up correctly. You can use that if you choose. If you choose not to, that's okay too. So you have the standard project information right here, customer information, craft rates, equipment rates, and if you want to add a customer user, then you can do that through there as well. So when you're looking at this from a 30,000 foot level, you can see what you've earned versus what it's cost you. And then you can see down here what your gross margin looks like. And as you hover over these items right here, you can see what your costs are kind of at a glance. Pretty easy to look at. So down here, you will have the statistics of amounts that you have to bill, amounts that you have to receive, your last billing date, when your last timesheet was entered, pretty much all of the vital information of when the paperwork was done on that project. So as you look through the straight time hours and the overtime hours, you can see right here that there's been 616 hours put on that project at a 40% margin. So when you look at this and you say, okay, my rates are designed to make 40% gross margin because you got to take into account all of your insurances, overhead costs, all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that your green outpaces the red. So as you look through that, you can see overtime hours are making 41%. Premium time, if you're working on holidays, double time, things like that, then that would show up over here. Equipment hours, if you're only making 2% on your equipment, this was done on purpose just so you could say, God, you know what, I've worked 260 hours and I've made $223 on my equipment. Maybe you're using the wrong rate sheet, maybe you're billing the wrong equipment. You know, there's a couple of things that you can go look at. If you look at this early and often, you'll be able to catch those items. Same thing with per diem. It looks like the per diem, there's no markup on the per diem. Sometimes that's the way that works out. Sometimes you can make a markup on per diem. And then we have over here our commitments. We have $3,250 with an average markup of 11%. So that is the 30,000 foot level look at your project right there. So as you go through this and you click on the budget and you look at the budget, there's really not much to put together as a budget. If it's T&M, you just set yourself up a place where you can charge your labor, you can charge your materials, charge your equipment, subcontractors, and in this case, there is a change order. If you go through and start adding a labor timesheet, the last labor timesheet that was done on this particular project was on 6/21. So essentially all you do is go through, add a timesheet, pick a date. You got two labor items here. One is the labor for the change order number 1, and the other one is the general labor for the T&M project. So pick one of those. If you use cost codes and they're set up, and that's where you would choose the cost code for that item. Then all you do is just come in and pick the person that you are going to add to the timesheet, how many hours they had. Their craft is already put in there as a standard craft. So Ron Swanson, if he's a craftsman 1, he's always going to be billed as a craftsman 1. If you want to bill him as something different, if you want to bill him as a helper for something that you're doing, then you just change that right there and it'll just change it just for this timesheet. Any other time that he's billed, it's going to be at his normal rate. Okay. So I'm going to close that out. If you go down to the equipment timesheet, same thing on the equipment timesheet. If we add an equipment timesheet, we select our date. I'm going to pick Friday the 16th, and our company truck, 10 hours, our excavator, 10 hours, and our forklift we add for 10 hours. So we save that. Got to check, we got to select a budget item, which in this case, there's only one. If it's a lump sum project and you have 14 different items that you're trying to add owned equipment to, then you can set all those up and those would all be right here for you to choose from. But since this is a simple T&M, we're going to pick our owned equipment and we're going to save that timesheet. Okay, there's our timesheet that we just barely created right there. So that's all done now. And in this example, we're going to say this project is complete and we're going to do a final billing for it. But before we do that, I'm going to show you what the daily logs look like. This is the daily log form right here. Most guys like to pull this up on their phone and use the microphone function. So you can talk to text right there. You can take pictures, you can upload documents, you can drag them and drop them, do whatever you need to do. So you have work performed, verbal agreements, problems and delays, and subcontractor issues. So once you're done, hit submit log. It's all time and date stamped. So if you make a mistake, you have to go in and do a new log. There is no opening it back up and reworking the log. That's done for obvious legal reasons. So in this example, if you need to send the log to a customer, then you would just choose the date range. Let's just say the last 7 days, we're going to send that to our customer. We're going to PDF it. Here's our PDF right here. Today was a good day, and then it gives you the information. Most logs are way more detailed than what I put in there, but that shows you the example nonetheless. Contract communications, RFIs, submittals, and change orders. So RFIs and change orders are designed to work interchangeably as far as if you do an RFI that turns into a change order, because not all RFIs lead to a change order. Sometimes you just need to ask a question. Sometimes you just need to get some information. You can do an informational RFI and that's no big deal. You can do that. Or if it's an RFI that will change and turn into some type of a change order or increase in cost, then what this will allow you to do is take the RFI and convert it directly into a change order once it's been approved. And it's designed to keep those two married together forever, because generally speaking, RFI number 6 is not change order number 6 generally. Usually RFI number 6 is change order number 2, or RFI number 7 is change order number 3, or something along those lines. So what that does is that will keep those RFIs together. You can do an RFI. Subcontractor can send you an RFI through the system, or you can send one to your customer. You can send that same subcontractor one to your customer with your markups on it as well. So if you go to the change order, customer change orders, it's going to show you the change order log. It's going to keep everything here and nice and neat and in order for you. Schedule of values. When you're doing a T&M project like this, the schedule of values automatically populates. If you're starting to put labor in there and you had that set up as a budget item, it's going to go ahead and give you that division within your schedule of values, and then it'll start adding the billable amount to it. If you have no materials charged to the job, then the materials is not even going to show up in the schedule of values until you add commitments to the project. Same thing with owned equipment, same thing with the subcontractor. If you go into the payment application, this is kind of where the magic happens. If you want to do a billing to your customer, you come in here, it's going to give you your schedule of values right here. It's going to say, okay, you've earned these values on this project. So what it's going to ask us to do is it's going to ask us to select an account from QuickBooks. So this particular project is connected to QuickBooks. So I'm just going to put some QuickBooks accounts in there. This tells us where the money goes, all that kind of stuff. So as we click on those and put those in there. So we have our QuickBooks account set up now. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to bill this. We say, well, God, there's not very much labor there. We had way more labor and timesheets than what's in here. And that's true. And it says that, there's $53,510 worth of billable dollars there to be put into this. So if you click on this little red triangle right here, that's going to stretch that date range out and grab everything that should be billed. So now you can see that all of those hours are there and accounted for. So if you click on this, it will check all of those hours right there, and you'll be able to add all of those. You can see we've added all $53,000 to the billing. There is nothing left over to be billed. So let's go ahead and close this out. Now it's going to move that over to the bill amount. Same thing with the material. So you can see right here, this TAM 1002, there were some non-billable material on that. So we don't necessarily need to give that to our customer. So we're going to check the boxes of all of these other, and this happens automatically. If you're using the PO correctly, this information will come in directly. You don't have to do anything extra. This is just a byproduct of keeping your PO log straight. So we'll close that out. We'll have all of our stuff there, all of our dollars there. So our owned equipment. So we're going to go ahead and check all of those boxes. So you can see that we have nothing available to bill. We've captured all of our equipment. So now our subcontractor, you can see this has a 1 and a 2. So what that means is that this is payment application number 1. This is payment application number 2 for this subcontractor. So we're going to pay him on both of those. So let's add him. So you can see over here, there's nothing remaining to bill. We're going to bill all $96,000. So now what we'll want to do is go ahead and this is the date, today's date. This is the due date because we're on net 30 terms, and you can set those terms to whatever you want. So once we do that, we approve that. You can see that there's no invoice number with this yet. So what happens when you save this after the approval is, so now payment application updated successfully. So what that did was that went into QuickBooks and it grabbed that invoice number right there. The reason it does this is because it shows this information that shows this amount of this invoice into QuickBooks so that your accounting records, your aging, your P&Ls, all of those kinds of things are correct. So that's one of the neat things about that. So now what you want to do is create your own invoice so you can send it to your customer. So as you're doing T&M, you want all of the backup for material. You want all of the backup for the labor timesheets. You want all the backup for, all of your equipment that was used on the project and invoices from subcontractors. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this PDF. So we're going to go ahead, and if we want to include the purchase orders and the invoices from our customers, we check those boxes, which they will automatically be checked. But if you don't want to add any of these purchase orders, you can just deselect them. If you want to send this directly to your customer, then you just put your customer's name in there. It's not the customer, but so here's the subject. And then if you want to put a message on there, go ahead and put the message. Once you hit generate, it's going to start building this PDF for you. Go through, make sure everything looks good. It says the PDF's being generated. And once you see that, it's going to email that to your email. And like I said before, if you put a customer email in there, it's going to email that directly to them. And that's pretty much the last thing that you would need to do with that invoice. So you can either get the email once it's sent to you, or it's going to give you the PDF once it's generated. Let me refresh this here real quick. This is kind of a big one, so it might take 1 second to get it. Okay, so that email just showed up, and here's the PDF right here. So if you sent this directly to a customer, it's going to show up over here in this sent to box, and it gives you all the timestamp and everything of when that was sent. So there's no question on when it is sent or anything like that. So if you pull this invoice open, so here's what your invoice looks like. There's the invoice number that came from QuickBooks. invoice amount, and it gives you the basics of it of, from 5/1 to 6/25 was the date, 5/1 to 5/28 on the equipment, material, subcontractor, and then you can see that this isn't just one page, it's actually 20 pages. So I'll just walk you through what the pages look like here real quick. So if you are doing progress billing, you would have the previously billed amounts right in here, but since this was just a one-time, we did the bill amount. There was nothing previously billed, but here's the amount that was earned on the project. So what this does is this gives you the detailed labor report of who worked on the job, what day, what their craft is, hours, dollars per hour, and then the total. And if they're per diem, if you're a company who uses per diem, it's going to show up. That's something that you can turn off if you don't use it or don't want to see it on a project. So as you go down through, all of those timesheets that we entered in are all right there. You can see there's our $53,510 in billable. As you go down through, here's the equipment detail billing report from 5/1 to 5/28. Details all of that out. So you're going to be billing $14,394 for a total of equipment. Then as you get down into the PO, it's going to give you the PO. This is the PO that you wrote and gave to your customer, TAM 1000. Okay, so here's the total cost, and here's the amount that you're billing your customer. So customer's going to want the backup. So like I said before, as long as you're using the PO system correctly, you scroll down to the next one, and here's the fancy invoice that I created for that $3,000. So that's the job cost invoice for $3,000, and then we have our $450 markup on top of that. So there's the PO that was written, and then there's the invoice from the customer from the vendor. PO that was written, invoice from the vendor. This is the one that had the $500 of non-billable. Maybe you had, some lumber or something like that that was not a billable cost. You can take that off and show that as a non-billable that you did not bill the customer that dollar amount. So as you go down, you have more of your POs and markup, invoice backup. Here's the subcontractor backup, and there's a subcontractor invoice, so your customer knows that you're being square with them. It works on transparency. There's a lot of information here, and there's really not a lot of extra steps in order to be able to get all of that information into that invoice. Like I say, as long as you're using the system correctly, that information will show up in there, and it'll be a couple of clicks and you're ready to send in an invoice. So now as we kind of finish up, I'm going to go through the rest of these real quick. Payments received. If you receive payments, this is where it would go. On this payment application right here, if you go in here, you can take this payment. We can help you get a merchant account set up. If you don't have one set up, you can make payments or take payments by ACH, or you can pay your vendors and subs by ACH or credit card as well. So we would just need to get that set up. That's a pretty handy feature, and it's a fairly new feature that Pathfinder just put in place. Payments received. If you've received payments from your customer, this is where they would show up. Commitments and expenses. This is your PO log. This is all of the expenses that were expended on that project, and it basically tracks everything. If you've got something that's like, see this right here, maybe this is something that you're not going to bill. You would have to, before you could close this job, you would need to make sure that that PO is somehow taken care of, either taken out of the system or committed, however that needs to happen. Employees, if you've got 100 employees in here and you only need to see like 5 or 6 of them on a timesheet, you can just click which ones you want to show up, so you don't have to look through 100 employees to find the ones that you're looking for. If your customer wants to see the information from their side, they have access to be able to see this information over here. You can see that, straight time hours, straight time cost, kind of puts that information right in front of them. If they want to see submittals, RFIs, see this change order right here, they're able to pull that up and look at that change order as well. They're able to look at commitments, basically just see the amount of money that they're spending on the project. If you're The reason that we put this in here is if you have a customer that says, I want to know how much I'm spending, you can give them access to be able to see this on their own. And then we give you access to be able to log in to see what they're seeing in case they call you and have a question. You can log in and see what they're seeing and be able to explain that to them. So just click out of there when you're done. So this has a feature, if you have a subcontractor that gives you a firm bid for something, the system will not allow you to overpay that subcontractor without some sort of a change order. Project reports, the detailed billing report essentially gives you what we just looked at. If we go back and say from April 1st to today, let's apply that. This is a PDF-able report that you can look at and just see where everything's at as far as, you know, forklift, how much time is it working, how much is it being charged. Then you got all your commitments down here. Then there's all your totals right there. So that's a really good report for T&M, not so much for lump sum, but it's not available for the lump sum reporting anyways. And then documents. So if you want to give somebody access to be able to see different documents, plans, pictures, whatever, you can give them read-only access, or you can give them edit access. This just stores any project files or documents or pictures or anything that you need to put in there. This stores all of the project information in one nice, neat file, and it's basically compiled forever. So if you're a flooring contractor and there's maybe a warranty issue on a project that you did 5 years ago, you can go back, pull this project up, look at the daily logs, look at the notes, look at the pictures, look at everything that you need to look at, and be able to handle that without trying to go back through the storage shed and find a file that may or may not have the right information in it. Everything's right here, right in front of you. So essentially that's the project, time and materials project, and that's what it does. It's very simple, very effective, very easy to use, and we look forward to maybe spending a little more time with you and telling you about it. Thanks.